Hey everyone, welcome to GMI Hub Online. We are so happy to see you back here with us this week. Hope you had a great week and enjoyed some nice weather. I think spring is starting to creep in, although today we had a little bit of snow here in Ontario. But again, we're so glad to have you here, and we are so excited as usual with the topics that we have today. Today, we are going to be talking about homegrown praise and worship music. We are going to be talking about the value of that, and especially here in Canada. I mean, other parts of the world do have that kind of worked out, but here in Canada, it seems like it's a bit of a question, a challenge, and we just want to discuss that. But before I introduce who our guest is going to be, I want to blah, blah. I want to introduce our co-host Dale Borland. How do you like that introduction,
Yeah,
Dale?
that's great. Awesome. Hey, nice to have you watching us tonight. We have got an amazing topic, homegrown praise and worship music. And we're going to be talking about how that and it's going to be an amazing topic. So please stay with us as we journey through this conversation. If you're joining us for the first time, thank you so much. Please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you'll know the next time we upload a video. Also, if you have someone who you know who's in the industry, who's a musician or artist, share the experience. Let them know about it. It'd be so cool to let them know, and we would love to be able to chat with you in the chat section down there. Just go ahead and ask us any question you like, and we're going to forward that question into our conversation. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Also, we have our website. It's the gmihub.ca, and you can check out all the things that are happening there. We've got something going on right now I'm really excited about, and that is our compilation CD. Our submissions can be put in so we can have your song put on our album. Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing? So all you do is submit your song online, and we can get your song on our Christmas album. Now, it has to be a Christmas song, so that will help us get the Christmas season for next one, because our volume 3, we've had done 1 and 2, and volume 3 is coming up. And this compilation is probably going to be the best one, bar none. So with your song on it, it'll be awesome. So anyway, let's get back to our conversation.
And tonight we have, I get the best part. I get to introduce our
Oh,
guest.
go, go, go.
Our guest
Yeah.
tonight is no stranger to GMI Hub Online. In fact, I wanted to say this. I don't know if you know this, Dale, but the end of this month, like March 30th, will actually be our second year anniversary of being on GMI Hub Online. Would you know? Do you believe
Wow.
that?
No,
It's going to
I
be
didn't
our
really
second
realize that.
year. Yeah.
Wow, that is
So
so great.
and the reason I'm bringing that up is because our guest was one of our first panelists on here.
Mhm,
It's Rachelle
mhm.
Luk. Again, no stranger to GMI Hub Online. She's an award-winning singer, songwriter, a worship leader herself, well respected, well known, and we're so thrilled to have her. Welcome, Rachelle.
Hi, Cheryl and Dave. Oh man, wow, thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. How kind of you. It's such a pleasure to be with you again tonight. I still remember we had such a great conversation last year.
Yeah,
No, 2 years ago. Can't believe it was 2 years ago.
yeah, yeah,
But
I know.
yes, I'm looking forward to this.
Yes, this is going
yeah.
to be
I
good.
think what we like to do is jump in the deep end. I think that's what we want to do, right, Cheryl? Is that what we want to do?
That's what we want to do. Okay, get
Okay.
ready. All right. So we want to talk about homegrown music. Let's kind of talk about, like, and we've had some conversations with other artists, and we talked about trends, and we asked them what were some of the trends that they were seeing in the churches that they were familiar with, right? And we had various answers. I think the last one I heard was, music from the top five. I mean, it's not, and I don't
Mhm.
mean the banks. I mean, there are certain uh, churches that are giving out music. Well, they're creating music and giving it out, and that's their calling to do that. And a lot of churches have grabbed onto them. And I don't know,
Mhm.
did you find that in the churches you were at, even this past Sunday?
Great
And
question.
silence.
Well, I will say that at my church, I'm the director of worship at Mississauga City Baptist Church, and we are like a very multicultural congregation. And it's not a huge church. It's um, depending on where you are on. I would say it's the size about 300, 400 people, but during COVID, it's different. But anyways, because of that, like my church, um, we do use and purposely use music from a lot of different diverse sources. We do sing some songs from Hillsong and Bethel and kind of those big, the top five or whatever. But I am also conscious to diversify that. So, for instance, I introduced a song yesterday by Sovereign Grace Worship Music, which is also, I mean, they're a pretty big organization, but their songs are a little more kind of in the modern hymn area, and the same with like the Getty music group. So we also sang "His Mercy Is More," which is a modern hymn that's being, taken under that Getty music umbrella. So because of our demographics, we do have a lot of older folks and a lot of younger folks. It's very intergenerational. So we do use a mix of hymns, modern hymns, worship music that's, new and hot or whatever. But actually we use a lot of worship music that is maybe older, from the 90s or even sometimes from the 80s. We'll pull out one of those gems and sing something that, is from a couple of decades ago. And I know that some churches maybe don't like to do that. They think those things are outdated. But yeah, I love having that kind of variety and also having a little bit more musical variety so everything doesn't just sound like, kind of that more rock based sound. But sometimes we'll take a hymn and do it in like a jazz style, or take something and do it in more like a country folk bluegrass style. And we have musicians and people in our church who love to do that, and I think it's one of my favorite things about my church, that we have a very diverse musical representation. So I
And
don't know. I don't know if a lot of churches do that. Do you guys? What's music like at your churches?
well, I think you're right about the talents and gifts of the musicians, allowing for them to enjoy what they're playing. I think that there's a certain thing that a musician who, or I've been in the worship team as well, so I know that if you're playing and you're enjoying it becomes more fun, and you really enjoy the blessing that God can give through the words as well. So um, our church is very contemporary in some regards too, but I really appreciate what you said there about the diversification of the song styles. I think that's important because you have to realize there's not just one kind of person in your church congregation. There's different types of people with different types of likes and dislikes and comfort zones as far as music is concerned. So yeah, I think that having some sort of not diversity so much, but something that's not consistently every week the same. I think that's important for a lot of reasons. For bringing in new music, for instance, and for bringing memories back to those old hymns, even, and the songs that we all grew up with. Like you were talking about some of the songs from the 80s. I'm just thinking Maranatha, those cassettes we used to listen to.
Yeah.
So anyway, but it's just, but even those, the words, some of the words of some of those songs are just so true. And
Yeah.
so I mean, if you're able to take the musicians and their talents and gifts and embody that song into a contemporary worship service, absolutely, totally.
Absolutely. Now, for me to answer that question, I have to answer it based on about two or three different churches I've been exposed to. Okay, so there's the one church that they're very contemporary, and they always want to be well, actually they're like a forerunner. They write their own music and they play their own music, so they're really strong on the contemporary. They have the trend is more of a rock feel, um, but they also venture into a few other feels as well, like a ballad feel and sometimes a little bit of a bluesy feel, maybe. Um, then there's another church, a couple other churches where I sang at, and they're more traditional. So
Mhm.
that's where the hymns come in. And even if it's not hymns, it's songs, hymns, and spiritual songs, if you want to call it that. They're really strong in that area. So I've exposed to that extreme. And then there's one smack dab in the middle that tries to do a little bit of what you're doing, like what you talked about, Rachelle. They have of a diverse grouping of people. A lot of them at that time were more on the older age, so they try to get the hymns in and some of the songs from the 80s and the 90s because that's when they felt strong and yes, I feel like I'm rocking, kind of idea. And then they have kids and they're trying to bring the newer music in to attract the kids too. So it's kind of, I've been exposed to all three, right?
Mhm.
But it's
Mhm.
important to bring that up now. But what's really interesting though is that a lot of the songs, if we know any of them at all, most of the songs that we're exposed to are from um, the Hill songs, the Bethels, the um, Passion, I believe, is one, and like there's a whole bunch. And if it's individuals, it's Chris Tomlin. It's there's a few others that are just really well known, and thank God for them. Like thank God that they are
Mhm.
in their calling and they're sharing
Yeah.
their music for the world, like for the world to hear, right?
Yeah.
But I have to bring it back down to Canada. I have to ask, how many churches, and it's funny because my husband and I, well, asked this question, more my husband than me, but we asked this question: how many churches actually play or or present songs from a Canadian artist?
Mhm.
Yeah.
How many churches have artists that are recording artists and are actually playing their music? You
Hmm.
know, and when we ask those questions, we're usually met with
Yeah.
um
A
you know
deer in headlights. It's like, what?
yeah. and and that's why this topic is so prevalent to me, because I'm asking the question, is there not any value in our Canadian creativity?
Mm.
Like I don't know what your thoughts are on that. Like is there I mean, I haven't worship led in a long time. I think I consider myself more of a soloist, but I do ask that question with the Canadian. There are Canadian artists. I've heard it from other panelists here. Canada has very talented people. Canada has it. And I go, okay, great. They have it. We have it. So where are they?
Where is it? Where is it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is a huge question. It's a huge
Mhm.
question. Um, oh, just by the way, I just looked down and I have the YouTube chat here, and I see someone said, "Do I have to be Canadian to be here?"
No,
I will say,
we
absolutely
welcome
not.
No,
We're
you.
so glad. We're
no,
glad you're
no.
here.
That's
Yeah.
funny. No.
We are glad you're here. And a matter of fact, we love your encouragement.
That's right. Totally encourage you to thank you for joining us. If you're not from Canada, thank you so much for joining us. Bless you.
Yes, yes, and we want Canadian music to bless the rest of the world too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
we're
Yes,
so glad that
Absolutely.
you're
exactly.
here. Um, just before we get in, I mean, this we could spend a whole hour answering that question. Maybe we will. But that's an interesting topic because I remember that several years ago, I was planning our worship set for Canada Day weekend, and I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to sing songs written by Canadians? So I started
Hmm.
going and looking and thinking, like, are there any songs that we, just sing already that are written by Canadians or have some sort of Canadian connection? So that was an interesting hunt. I wish I remembered all the songs, but I do remember like looking up that Matt Maher is he's Canadian, right? He's out from out east. Um, but he lives in the States now. But so we sang some of his songs. And the hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus, was written by
Hmm.
Joseph Scriven. And there's a Canadian connection to that song, that he penned those words here in Ontario, I believe. Um, so we sang that, and yeah, and I remember it was just kind of interesting to look into that. But obviously there wasn't a huge amount that I was coming across. Um, but to your question, um, is there value in the Canadian church singing Canadian songs? I should hope yes. Otherwise, why would you? Um, there is. I would be curious, actually, to ask people though, like, why do they think it's valuable? Um,
Mm,
and
mhm,
actually, before I say my answer, I'd love to hear from you, Cheryl and Dale. Like, why does it even matter if the Canadian church can be served by all the excellent music being written in Australia and the UK and the States, and you know, can't we just do that? Can't we just listen to that? What would be the difference if we
mhm,
sang songs
mhm.
that were written by Canadians, in addition to the other songs that we
Yeah.
sing from other places? What do you
You
think?
know what?
Why does it matter?
That's a good question. And you know what? I have my thoughts. Should I defer to Dale and see what Dale says?
I know. I appreciate. I do, but because you know what, it's interesting. I know so many talented musicians, artists, singers, worship leaders, and they've been doing what they're doing for decades. I'm thinking of just a couple of my youth pastor who friends who've gone on to do assistant pastors and then lead pastors at churches, and they're all preaching from the pulpit and doing a fantastic job because they're good at expanding on scripture. But as a younger pastor, they were worship leaders, they were songwriters, and they I felt their songs could have been published. They could have done so much. And there's so many others that I don't know. And it's just when
Yeah.
I just throw out some of their names like Kevin Rogers, he's a pastor and he's moved to do other things. And then there's so many others. I'm just trying to get my names out of my head. But anyways, those guys and ladies who are out there writing worship music in their own churches, and that's what they're really doing. There were they're doing it because there's a need, so they write the songs necessarily for maybe a sermon that's going on, so they write a song for that sermon, or they're just really a worship leader who likes to write and bring their congregation along with a new song that they've written. um, I, my heart has always, and Cheryl knows this, there's a way that we can network as a body of Christ with each other and say, look, my church has written this song and we want you guys to have it. If you're interested in
Hmm.
singing it, we'd love to just give that to you. Or, like,
Hmm.
and again, I know that there's so many things that are inhibiting that, denominations and
Yes.
all the silliness that goes
Yeah.
on. But it's to me, it's like if we could only operate as worship leaders and like autonomous from the denomination and just say, hey, you know what, guys, great worship song, check it out. And even if you hear somebody else is doing a great worship song and say, oh, that's awesome, that's a great song, I'm going to let Fred know about that because his band could do that. I think we as a church mindset has to change in order to
Yeah.
help to grow the industry, that's for lack of a better term, to allow for churches to experience what Canadian worship it could be like.
I agree. And
Amen to
also,
all of that.
if I,
Yes.
yeah, I agree. And you know what? I'm probably going to, there's one thing that has come to me or come to my mind when it comes to worship and praise. And the reason I think there's a focus on and this in my mind for Canada, and this may sound strange, it may sound strange, but I feel as though if we look at what praise and worship is all about, and we look about what like think about what the music is all about, it's it's like the cross. It's pointing to God, and it's also helping one another, encouraging one another, right? So there's a vertical purpose, there's a horizontal purpose. And as
Hmm.
our friend in the chat says, all of us like that's why I say I'm really thankful for those who are already in their calling and using their gifts and talents to share it with other churches and other people to listen to and be encouraged by. you know we can speak and we can sing to encourage other cultures. We can do that. There's another level though. I feel as though Canada has a calling too. That
Mm.
Canadian market, the Canadian artists have a calling, and their calling is to rise up and be the unified army of
Hmm.
musicians that goes forward um, to lead. I don't want to say just lead Canada, but kind of join forces with everybody else in the army of singers and instrumentalists. I just feel like Canada is to be a part of that, and it's for some reason it just seems like Canada is one of the countries where it hasn't happened. It just seems like it hasn't happened, and unfortunately, a lot of artists that probably feel that same calling run. I don't want to say run to the US, but they are attracted to going to a different location where it seems like their music will be more appreciated and that they can develop themselves a little bit more. And
Yeah.
and I guess because they feel they don't have that support here. And
Mhm.
I'm hoping that the existence of GMI Hub will help change that. I'm hoping that
Yeah.
if nothing else, GMI Hub will be a catalyst to change that whole
Mm.
thing. But
Mm.
to answer your question, Rochelle, I think it's important that we talk about Canada and Canadians writing the music as well, not to show up anybody, but to join forces with everyone else who's been doing the same thing, who's been doing it. They've operated in their calling. And for some reason, it seems as though Canada hasn't. And if I'm wrong,
Mm.
if you disagree, say so, right? But I just feel like Canada
I,
hasn't
I agree
operated in their calling
wholeheartedly. I
fully.
agree.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Yeah.
would
Mhm.
totally agree. I think a lot of Christian artists in Canada, I don't personally know a single one of them who would disagree. But
Right.
it's frustrating to be a Canadian Christian artist, and we will get into that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully to
Yeah.
bring
Yeah.
some hope and clarity to that. But yes, I totally agree with all that you said about the value, and I just felt so inspired when you talked about the army, that we are part of that army, and
Mhm. Mhm.
Yes.
that worship, and music and art in the kingdom of God isn't just a pretty accessory. It's a weapon against the enemy
Yeah.
That's right.
Yep.
in this
Yeah.
battle against the forces of darkness. And it is
Mhm.
That's right.
a weapon to show the world and to strengthen the church so that we
Mm.
really not just know the gospel, but experience it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Another thing I think is that worship music, and when I say that, okay, you can call it praise and worship music. I'll just call it worship music. It's the
Worship
songs that
music.
we sing in our churches, the vocabulary of worship that we have. Really, when you think about what they are our prayers set to music, right? That is
Mm.
what the book of
Mm.
Psalms is.
Yeah.
They are
Mm.
the prayers set to music. And they're set to music so that we will remember them, so that we will recall them, so that we will just wake up spontaneously with the word of God in our minds.
Yeah.
Um, and I think one of the answers to this question about why does it matter that Canadian churches sing Canadian songs is maybe a similar parallel would be like saying, every Sunday in almost every church in Canada, they have a pastor who spent hours and hours laboring that week over a sermon to
Mm.
present the word of God to their
Mm.
people.
Yeah. I see where you're going with this.
You could say,
Yeah. Yeah.
there are hundreds, thousands, billions of excellent sermons that have been, that are currently out there online,
Mm.
that are
Mhm.
archived, there's no shortage of great sermons. But why does it matter? What would be the difference? Well, let's just have everybody come to our church and then go and simulcast some other preacher talking to his people in another part of the world. It would be just as good, wouldn't it? It's not
Mhm.
about, is it good because it has to be. It's about, is it God's word to us? Is
Mm.
it
Yes.
our relationship with God?
Mhm.
So that's one of the
Right.
ways to answer the question. Another
Mhm.
thought that I've been encouraged by is, and I'm pretty sure I heard this in a podcast interview with Andrew Peterson. I don't know if you're familiar with who he is. He's an excellent Christian songwriter, and of course, he lives in Nashville. um, but he shared this illustration, I think, um, about how you know we all want to know God. We all want to also represent God in His truth. And
Mm.
in the heart of God, there are just, there's a different room in his heart for each one of us, his unique created children, to know him. I can know God and experience him, and it can be totally true. But it is slightly different, maybe, than Cheryl, your relationship with God, and Dale, your relationship with him, because it's a personal relationship, and because he has created each one of us uniquely and beautifully. And he loves that. He delights in the fact that he didn't make a single copy in all of human history. He did that on purpose. He's such a creative God. And so as we get to know God and as we are trying to be formed in his image, I think a lot of times we are missing out on that attribute of God, the creativity of God. Yes, we know all these other things about him. He's sovereign, he is merciful, he is just. Yes, yes, yes. He's also creative, and we haven't always leaned into that enough. We haven't always taught about that enough or been discipled in that way enough. And I think that there's a gap, I think, in our theology of art. And that leads partly to these other problems that we're saying about, well, we don't always value it. We don't always value it. And we don't always know the place. There's not, I feel like there's just so much more potential that God wants to unleash for his kingdom. And that artists are not, we're not the only part of that, for sure. We're not. But we are an important part of it. And we need to understand that better in our churches, and our pastors, and our leaders, and our, just everybody in the churches. We all need to understand that better. So that, like Cheryl, you said, we can rise up and be part of that global song.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I appreciate that, because it's something that, I was taught a long time ago. Is like, we look at the Bible in the first few verses, it talks about how God created this, created that, created man, and then he rested. What we know about God up to that point in time is he's a God who creates, and he made us in his image, and in the image of God we are creative beings. And it's so you just said it so well, and it makes sense that we as creative beings have that opportunity to create. Now I just want to take just a second to let everybody know about the GMI Hubs Compilation CD, and we have a little promo we want to show you, so please check this out.
Are you writing a Christmas song? Do you want it on our Christmas CD? This year, send us your song for your chance on the CD. Submission deadline July 31st, 2022. Family Christmas Volume 3, Christmas 2022.
So my question to you, if you're watching right now and you're a musician artist who likes to write Christmas music, what are you waiting for? Submit your song, gmihub.ca, submit your song, get it in there. We want to get your music. We want to encourage you to write and play and perform and do your recording and do the best job you can. We want to help to encourage you and bless you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's get back to our conversation. Rachelle, let's get you back on screen. There she is. So, see, where do we go from here? And yes, there is value. So now, let's talk about, I want to kind of go towards, what do us artists have to do in order to help? Well, what can we do to encourage our artists to use their talents, and not only use it, but to share it? Like, what do we need to do to help them? Any thoughts on that?
I have a
Or what they
lot of
should
thoughts.
do?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I will try. Let me try, and I'm actually going to answer the question kind of backwards, because I think you've also had a lot of sessions talking to artists or equipping them. This is how you write a good song. Don't just write an okay song. Write a great song. And these are the things that can help you get there. Production. Don't just, do it okay. Do it great. Do it professionally. These are the things that can help you get there, or these are the kinds of people to work with. I think there is no shortage of resources, actually, for our artists. And there's no shortage of people out there telling them, work harder, hustle more, artists. And I have to say, for myself as an independent artist, that it's exhausting. It's exhausting. As an independent artist, you are told that you need to be a great songwriter, a great musician. You should probably also know something about, production and recording. And on top of that, you need to learn how to promote yourself and market your work, get your booking. You have to be your own publicist and booking agent, promoter and bookkeeper and social media guru. You have to do everything and be awesome at all of them. And I think a lot of advice that is given to artists can be summed up as go and be excellent at everything and work hard at everything all the time until you find success.
And that sounds overwhelming, right?
That's the recipe right there, guys. That's it. That's all you have to do.
That's the recipe. Yeah, and if you haven't found success, it's because you're not working hard enough.
Yeah, exactly.
It's your fault. Yeah. Now, I will say that very often it could be that, maybe your songs just aren't that well written. Maybe you do need to work on your craft, or maybe the production didn't serve the song perfectly and there was a gap there. Or maybe all of that was great, but the marketing was not done well. There can be lots of reasons along that whole chain of things that you are not finding success. But I will say that the longer that I have been in this industry and learned more about it, and what I will say now, I will, just have a caveat that this is my perspective as an independent artist in the Canadian Christian music industry as of today, based on all of my experience and what I have learned. Maybe I'm always learning. Maybe in a little while I would have a different perspective, but I'll share what I have now. That it's actually good for us as artists to understand why it's so hard. What are the other factors beyond the fact that I am not superhuman and good at all of those things and able to invest all of my time and energy into those things? What are the actual practical factors that explain why things are especially challenging for Canadian artists? For example, Dale, you said earlier that you had, pastors or friends who were excellent musicians and songwriters, and the quality of what they were writing was amazing. I will say that too. There are lots of Canadian artists who are writing excellent, beautiful music that is worthy of being used, not just here in Canada, but around the world. Mm-hmm. A lot of people might just, initially they'll just say, oh, it's because Canadian artists aren't as good. They're not as talented, or they're not whatever. That isn't, I don't think that's necessarily the primary answer. We have to understand that as a market in Canada, we do have unique challenges. And we can't just compare ourselves to America or whatever other market that we see flourishing and say, well, if I'm just as talented as so-and-so American artist, I should be experiencing the kind of success that they are. We can't. We can't compare them because we're not America. We are Canada. We are population-wise a much smaller market, and plus, in terms of population density, we are it's much lower. This means that the cost of touring across Canada is exponentially higher than the cost of touring America. And that if you compare, those things, if you were to tour, let's just even say, I don't know, like 100-kilometer radius in America, you would get to reach this many people and this many venues, and you would make back your ticket sales because in just, let's say, a tour bus, the cost of driving that far would make you at least this much money in terms of tickets and merch.
Yeah.
You can't say the same thing in Canada, right?
No.
Just in that amount of land, you can only reach a much smaller population. You can only sell a much smaller number of tickets and merch and so on.
Yeah.
So just in terms of sheer expense versus revenue, it's a completely different market.
Absolutely. We know the density of population in California alone is the same as all of Canada. If you were to travel from PEI all the way through every city and every province to get to BC and Vancouver, you'd reach the same amount of people you would if you had driven from the top of California down to the tip. It's like it's totally different market.
You can't compare. You can't compare. So that's just geography that's against you.
Yeah.
Okay. And that also explains why a lot of American tours don't really, include a lot of Canada, just because it's not lucrative. But when you think of, that's just one factor. When you think about the Christian music industry and the kind of resources that and support that artists have in the States as compared to here, even if you think about, like, for instance, mega churches, the sizes and the resources that some churches have in America compared to Canada. Again, much smaller scale. The industry as a Christian music industry is much smaller. We have less radio stations, and those radio stations reach less numbers of people. We don't have, that I know of, in Canada, any label for Canadian Christian music. So that means we don't have publishers. We don't have really any sort of strong artist collective either. So because of all of those factors, it's a much more challenging market, a much more challenging environment. And I think it actually helps as an artist to know that, to just understand that it's not just because I'm not good enough or my music isn't good enough. I am responsible for making my music awesome and excellent. But I also have to understand the market and what it could take to, be successful in that.
Right.
So
because of those realistic expectations, then you have artists who are saying, okay, I'm going to go to the States.
Exactly.
That's where I can.
Why wouldn't you, right? Like, why would you not?
Right. Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I think what you said earlier, Cheryl, that, GMIHub help be a part to these problems. The solution isn't just one thing. It's not just up to artists. It's not just up to churches or radio stations or other parachurch organizations or organizations like this. All of that has to come together in a system that works together and gives strength to each other. But how encouraging it is to see that you guys are so excited to be part of that. I think that's so great.
I love what you
so
said.
important.
That's so true. I love what you said about everybody coming together. I was kind of in the background doing this, going, you hit that one right on the nose, because I think that is what needs to happen. We need to come together, and that will be the collective that will help move it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of our mantras about the unity, the community. That's one of our things. I don't say it all the time, but unity, community, mentorship, and talent growth. That what you talked about, Rachelle, was the unity part. Yes, everybody needs to come together, and that is such a beautiful vision that I wish would come true real fast.
Yes.
But snap your fingers. Yes.
Hey, we keep praying.
There you go. But you're right, and and I love, like, there's as you were talking, Rachelle, there's some activity happening in the chat here, and we're hearing, like, there's ways we should be supporting our artists, and one way is, like, we literally as individuals we should be supporting. I've been seeing. I'm sorry, I'm trying to read all the notes, and there's so many.
But there is ways we can encourage artists by just being there for them too. I mean, if you know somebody who's a musician or an artist, I mean, it's been tough lately to do that. But there's some restrictions now, but it's lessening. So it'd be nice to just, if not be there for them at the actual event, encourage them, help promote it, talk about them on your social media, be an encouragement to the artists who are doing stuff. That'd be a big help.
It would
Yeah,
be. Now,
exactly.
here's a funny thought. Here's a funny thought. I want to talk about the geography thing because you're
Mm,
right. Like density wise, like we have a lot less people here in this country than maybe in other places that have a smaller geography but a whole lot more people, right?
yeah.
Um, but I sit there and go, we just went through a pandemic where no
Mm,
one was traveling. Okay, there was like we were all locked in rooms, and the only way we could communicate if we wanted to communicate outside of our homes was through
Mhm.
online and through things like Zoom and other entities like even what we're using right now. And I mean, it was exponential, that the rise. I mean, the Zoom Corporation must be billionaires right now because of
that's
all
right,
the
exactly.
as
Mm,
everyone went zooming to meet their families, and all of a sudden, geography had no bearing. I mean, we could
mm,
talk to someone completely around the other side of the world as if they were right next door to us, kind of idea.
Yes,
So I look at
exactly.
that and go, so I look at that and go, so would that experience alone be a way of saying, Canada, this is one way you can kind of overcome the geography
Mhm.
challenge, for example? Like, I agree with you, Rochelle. Let's understand the challenges, but once we understand it,
Yes,
instead of using it as a, well, I can't because,
exactly.
how about we
Yes,
think of it as, now we understand it, now how can we overcome it? How can we
mm,
now
exactly.
become successful despite the challenges? I think I wanted to say that only because I have heard about the challenge about the geography, and it's kind of like, oh, I can't make it, so because I can't tour
Uh,
and it costs too much
yes,
money, and because of this, and and the end result seems like, so that's the reason you're giving up. That's the reason you're
yes,
not sharing
mm,
your talents. That's the
mm.
reason that the God-given gift that's been given to you is not being given back and given
Mm.
out, you know?
Preach
mm,
it,
And
sister.
so so
yes,
so I sit there and go, okay, fine, let's understand it. So let's talk. We talk geography. Well, we had an entire world pandemic to stop everything. No traveling, no festivals, no concerts, and we were left with technology. We were left with the Zooms and all the other NDIs, and I can't speak all the technical, believe it or not, but anyway, but we were left with all that. Is that not one way we can overcome
of course,
that challenge?
Mhm.
definitely. It definitely is. Yeah, and I like what you said too. That and that's why I said I wanted to share all of those challenges is exactly that. It's
Yes.
not because I'm trying to say, oh, it's impossible, let's all just give up and let the rest of the world write worship music and use it. But
Yeah.
I think part of it is because if we aren't conscious of the unique challenges of the Canadian market, then we try to take solutions from other parts of the world and use them here. And then we get confused and frustrated when it doesn't work. I would say that
Right.
in general, a lot of the artist mentorship, even that I've been available, that is available to me to receive, is for American artists. And so I
Right.
can't just take a lot of what they say and plug it into Canada. I mean, of course, there's some of it that's great, but yeah, understanding unique challenges means not give up. It means, well, we have unique solutions. We have to understand our market so that we can reach it, and we can't just
Yes.
cut and paste American
Right.
Mm.
solutions or whatever onto it.
Yeah, that's
Right.
Um,
yeah.
Exactly.
yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
definitely the virtual world. I mean, that's a huge that's a huge thing, and I think also that the pandemic, in some ways, has made it like I think before the pandemic there were ticket sales for virtual things too, right? But probably not as popular. Even now, it's probably even better, right? If I was to do a concert and then also sell virtual tickets to it, I probably would have better success with that than I would have before the pandemic, just because everyone's used to it. So,
Right.
yeah, I think it definitely opens up new possibilities for us.
So on that
Yes.
note, is there something that you would recommend to an artist, perhaps, who is thinking, well, what can I do now to increase those opportunities to get my singing into other churches or to into the hands of people or to the ears of people? What do you think? There's
Yeah,
something that we could practically do?
there's a lot you can practically do. I
Mhm.
mean,
Mhm.
okay, it's such a simple answer, but okay, I promise I will actually answer your question. I will answer another thing and then come back to it because I think it'll help. And of course, I had to draw something, right? Okay. So
Yay!
I just want to clarify this first because again, I think as an artist and for myself, we see a lot of things happening out there and we think, oh, that's what it means to be a successful artist. I have to do all of that and I have to do it like that to be successful. And I think that undertone is in our conversation even right now. What advice
Mhm.
can I give to artists to become more successful? So, uh, first of all, we have to understand that what we are doing as Christian artists who create music for, for the church, whether it's used in churches or just music that Christians listen to in general, that there are different aspects to it, three main aspects. There's the ministry aspect of it, which is, we do this because we are artist servants. We create music for the sake of others, for the sake of strengthening the church, for the sake of just, strengthening my own relationship with God, and then through that, using it to strengthen other people's relationships with God. It has to be a ministry. The art itself, that's the songwriting, the creative work, practicing your instrument, learning more about how to rhyme different words and whatever. The art part of it, we all love that. Then there's the business and industry side of it, which we're talking a lot about tonight. This is where, radio and touring and just the basic fact that your music needs to make money just to pay itself off so that you can keep making more music. That's just a basic factor. Now, you don't necessarily have to do all three. If, in general, what we have in mind when we talk about a professional artist or a recording artist or whatever, we're thinking those people are called to do all three and do them all very well. Their art is great, they do it, their ministry is great, and they have success on the business side and the industry side. They, get awards or they have this much radio, they're charting on radio, all of that stuff. Those big artists that we think of are this. And what we're saying when we say Canadian artists aren't succeeding, we're also saying they're not doing all three. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what I've come
Right.
to understand is that we can't assume that we're called to all three. Maybe some of us are called to just ministry and art. Maybe we're called to just write songs and share them. Recording music and sharing a song doesn't actually have to cost thousands of dollars. The way that I do it does. But like to answer your question, Dale, if someone decides, hey, oh, I wrote this song in my devotional time with God, and I think it's pretty cool, and I think maybe some other people would want to sing it. All you have to do is make a voice memo on your phone and text it to another person and say, hey, what do you think of this? Do you like it? Would you want to sing it? If you do, I can email you a PDF chord chart that costs absolutely nothing to you or to them, and you've just blessed another person with a worship song that maybe
Mhm.
they would want to use. And maybe they sing it for a while and they find that, oh, I really like this. And then they share it with their worship team at church and then they play it. You know, that's beautiful. And to me, that's successful. It's useful in the kingdom of God. I know for myself that the calling God has given to me in terms of being an artist is just to create songs that are useful in the kingdom. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the songs have to make money. It doesn't necessarily mean that all the songs have to succeed on the radio. A lot of the songs that I write won't succeed on the radio just because they're not in that exact style that they're looking for, right? So I think that actually a lot of people are called to that ministry and art and don't even worry about the other stuff. If it doesn't have to cost you a lot, you already have a guitar and you already have an iPhone and you can make basic recordings on there, that's great. And I think that builds the kingdom. You could think about, So a lot of us as artists, when we say, okay, I'm going to take this really seriously, then that means we're going for this. Now, this comes with a lot of other stuff and a lot of different considerations. And when you start to create music for this, it gets a lot more expensive to create, but it also actually changes some of the art decisions that you make. For instance, like I just said, you can't, certain songs are marketable, and certain songs will have some chance at commercial success. That doesn't, to me, make them better. It just means that they are in that lane. They are radio songs or singles. It's just a type of song. It doesn't mean it's better. It just fits that category. And those are the types of songs that could have success on radio, for instance. But when you do that, you have to then make artistic decisions that go in that way. How many times have you talked to an artist who sends you a song and they don't want to sacrifice their artistic or creative vision to make it more radio friendly? Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That happens all the time. But once you understand that you have to make decisions, if you're going for this, then you have to think about your art differently. If you're going for this, you have to think about your ministry differently. Not that you're watering it down or making it less about Jesus. No. You have to uphold that. But you also have to think about, can I afford to take this gig where they're going to pay me nothing? Can I afford to go and serve this church that can't afford to pay my fee? Every once in a while, maybe I can, but I can't always. Otherwise, I'm sacrificing this. And if my ministry is dependent on this, in terms of being sustainable, I need to get paid so that I can invest it into my art so that I can keep being an artist. Otherwise, what happens is, we can't afford to keep being artists, and we can't afford to record our songs, and we can't afford to go on tour, and so we give up. So I make certain decisions, and then I try to think about what I'm trying to do. Like, I can't always make decisions that will make all three of these things optimized. When I can, that's the best. But sometimes I just am like, oh, you know what? I wrote a song and I know that it's not a radio kind of song, but I think it's really special in this way or could really reach people in this way. So I'm just going to make kind of like a cheaper recording of it, more like a demo. And I'm just going to release it. And it will serve the ministry and the art purposes, but it won't really serve the industry purposes. It's not going to make money for me. And then I balance that off with saying, well, I did that thing that doesn't make money, but it's ticking the in ministry box and the art box. Then I have to strategically make some plans. How am I going to succeed on the industry side? What am I going to do that's going to help pay the bills so that I can keep doing what I want to do?
Yeah. Wow. Because I think you're hitting a lot of points that some people some people right now, half of them are really mad at you, and the and the other half are like saying, "Oh, I've been saying this all my life," and my music career, But you got those like the ministry. I think Cheryl would probably agree with me. The ministry, as far as church worship music is concerned, a lot of people, soloists like Cheryl is a soloist singer. Ministry is what they do, and they travel from churches to churches doing in that music ministry, and that was their emphasis and has been their emphasis. And they're not necessarily an artist. They don't write the songs,
Mhm.
but they like to sing them,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that's part of and that's their role. And then there's others who write songs, and they write songs, and they're not necessarily touring, they're not doing anything with, but they like to write music. And somebody like myself, for instance, I've written so many songs, but no one's heard them, and I don't have any
Mm,
machine to help get them to the next level. Or there's the other side of it, the business industry. There's people that do that so well, but their artistry and their
yeah.
ministry is really weak. But their business is so good,
Exactly.
they're doing well. They're making a
Exactly.
living out of it. So I totally agree with you 100% on this. The having all three of those is like the perfect storm. If you yourself as an artist are a great writer, and you've got lots of ministry, and you've got a business model that works for you, maybe that's not you that's doing it. Maybe you got people involved in the process, and you've got more than one individual
Exactly.
who's helping you with. You've got a what do you call it, a PR person, or you've got somebody who's doing all your connecting the dots, and you so that
Yeah.
maybe a group of people that's helping you. I mean, that may be the way to go. If you're a great singer and you got a good ministry, maybe there's a machine, or I call it a machine because that's the
Yes.
terminology that we use, but that's got that kind of can support what you're doing to help you get to the next level. I
Exactly.
don't know. It's hard to do it all on your own. Keep all those balls in the air. It's hard to juggle.
Yeah. Exactly. And I
And
think,
and it
I think, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go, Rochelle,
Oh,
go.
yeah, no, I just wanted to say that, like, there's this idea out there that to be a real artist, you have to be making money from your art. Like,
Hmm.
I used to feel that way. The day that all of my income comes from my music, I will feel so awesome. I will feel like a real artist, you know? And maybe that's what it is for some people. Maybe that is what God is calling you to. But maybe it's not. And I think you can be just as much an artist and be pursuing your calling as an artist. And, like, yeah, you don't have to be doing all three of those things. You can just do the ministry and the art and not worry about the business industry side because you can come from another source. Yes, it does mean that you don't get to put all of your art and your ministry, but it also means that you don't have to worry about a lot of terrible things that give me headaches. And it also means that you don't have to ever make sacrifices um, for those business industry types of decisions. You can just be like, yeah,
Hmm.
creatively, I want to do this. Or in terms of ministry, I want to do this. And there's so much freedom in that too. I mean, and honestly, I mean,
Hmm.
I'm blessed. I'm blessed right now in this season to have what I have in the sense that I work at a church. I'm on staff at a church. So my
Hmm.
income, I have a stable income. Um, but I'm also blessed because they do support me as an artist and they want to see me succeed. And so they include in, you know, the work that I do there that I write songs for the church. And I do that as part of it. So it doesn't have to be this separate other thing that I only can do after late at night and stay up
Hmm.
late to do, you know? So, um, but that's a huge thing for me to have stable income. That's a
Hmm.
big struggle for a lot of artists. So, yeah, I mean, we have to think practically and we have to think more in the big picture. If I
Yeah.
want to build a long term sustainable career and ministry as an artist, for me, I'm learning all this industry business stuff so that I can have a sustainable ministry. That's the goal. To me, that always is it, right? The business has to it's just there to serve the ministry so that it doesn't just sputter out and die for lack of resources. Um,
Yeah.
we have to think about those things. But very often, especially as Christian artists, we can kind of be like, oh, God will provide and all that. Of course, He will provide, but He also gave you a brain to use. So
Hmm.
let's
Hmm.
be good stewards,
Amen.
the
Yeah,
parable of the
that's
talents.
true. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. I think it's important. Since we talked about value, I want to say, I just want to add to that is that if there are artists that are watching right now and they feel like, yeah, I'm concentrating on the using that diagram, the art and the ministry, that's just as valuable, whether or not you're doing the business part. And you probably
Yeah.
already said it, Rachelle, but I just wanted to put the exclamation
Yeah.
mark on that. If that's where God's called you, then ask him to show you how you can do it the best possible way in those two areas. And
Exactly.
and if you are called to do the business side, ask God to help you with that too. Right, that kind of
Mhm.
idea.
Yeah.
So I
Or,
just and
or
I
or reach
and
out to
I
somebody
just
who's an artist. That would be a big help to somebody who doesn't know how to do that. If you're wired that
yeah,
way and you like somebody what they're doing, reach out to them and say, "Hey, I want to take you on and help you get your music out there." That'd be a big blessing. It would be.
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Exactly.
and that's what it's
Yeah.
all about. Everyone helping one another is what it should be about. We're not
Yeah,
islands on our own. And as I said,
that's right.
I know I said this in some meeting that I had before, that we're not in competition. I was thinking what
Hmm.
you said there,
Hmm.
Rochelle, about you sing into your phone or sing into your little device and you email it to somebody else. And I'm like, that sounds so easy. But
It's so
I
easy.
just all of a
Anyone can
sudden
do it.
just
Yeah,
yeah. And yet at the same time, I had this sense of, but is there a sense of, oh, someone's going to take my song? What are they going to do with my song? And, is that going to
Yeah.
come in? And I just
yeah, of
wanted
course.
to reiterate, we are all on the same team. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
And we are not it's not a competition. It's
Yeah.
how lovely it is for when God's people dwell together in unity. I know I'm paraphrasing
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
but it's about coming together with the talents that we have, operating in unity for
Hmm.
the purpose that God has created us for,
Hmm.
right? And
Amen.
so there is no competition. There should be no competition, right? The only competition there was, God already won it. So all we're
Amen.
doing is re- we're doing is just emphasizing that we're on the winning side. That's it. That's
That's
all we're
right.
doing.
That's right.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah,
I
That's
love the
it.
and
comments that
Yeah.
come in.
as a community of musicians, we're there for each other. So we're hitting our
Hmm.
second motto there. Unity we talked about earlier, and then community. And as a community, we can work together and helping each other to build the ministry that God has given to us.
That's
Yeah.
right. And we
Yeah.
can mentor one another, those who know what they're know more. We can encourage that mentorship so that talent can
We get
grow.
talent growth. Yay! Exactly.
And Rochelle said, they're
Exactly.
like, what are you two people doing? So,
No, it's all good.
you know, uh,
I do just want to say, sorry, Cheryl. Go ahead. Go ahead.
well, the other thing I wanted to, well, there's one more thing I wanted to go in, well, not one more, but we talked about the artist side. Now I also wanted to go into the non-artist side. What can others who may not be called to sing or to write or to be a musician, to be part of the art or the ministry in that way, or the business, what could we do, what could that side do in order to help um, encourage the value, encourage the artists to move forward, especially here in Canada?
Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Just before I answer that question, I do just want to note that in the chat we had some feedback saying when we were talking about the geography problem, he said if it's hard for
Yes.
individual artists to tour, maybe bigger Canadian cities could try to arrange festivals with artists from around Canada. That would definitely be, yeah, part of that big system. Festivals would be part of that. I believe that several years ago there was a festival that started called the Baruna Festival. I don't know if you guys heard about that. I'm not sure why that kind of stuttered out, but yeah, but definitely um, festivals would be a great part of that. And oh, and I also want to say hi. John Corbin is here. Hello, my
Yes.
friend.
Yeah.
Cheryl, he's the one I
Woohoo!
was telling you about earlier. He's the hip hop artist, and if you haven't had him on here, you should definitely have him on here.
I'm
But he
pursuing
said,
him
"Would
and
you
he
mind?"
knows it.
Yeah,
Oh,
John, we've been talking to you,
yes,
bro. Come on. We're waiting
yes.
for you.
There you go, John. You heard it. You heard it. You are coming on the show. You know it.
Can't get away from it
Yeah,
now.
yeah, free shout out.
He
Okay.
said yeah, he said we should be mindful of ministry that happens behind the scenes too, like when I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about the ministry and the business and the art. Yeah,
Yes.
it's true that the business, the ministry can happen in all of that, just in the way
Mm-hmm.
that we conduct our business, the way that we live with integrity. So yeah, all of that's amazing.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that he's actually John said something that kind of triggers something in my mind. It's the support structure that's behind the artist, the prayer, the supplication, the spiritual guidance, and all the other things that aren't forefront. I think that's what John's also saying there. There are people that behind the scenes that do the things that are the meat and potatoes behind the ministry, right? So I
yeah,
appreciate that, John. Thank you.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Um,
awesome. Uh,
I want to answer
and I
your
see.
question, Cheryl, but if let me just say so I don't forget, after I answer this
Yep.
question, if you want to come back to what you said about the voice memo thing sounding so simple, but it's not. There are all these little things that I realize come into play when it's like, oh, it's not simple anymore. So that would be really good to come back to if we have time.
Yes,
But
yes.
to answer your first question about, like, we've talked about the artist side. What about everybody else? What else can be done? I have some ideas on that, and I would love to hear, yours and anyone in the chat who has that too. Um, One question was like churches specifically. What can churches be doing to support artists? And I'll say something that I've been thinking about a lot, but I don't know that I know the answer to this or what it even looks like. But it's something that I think is fascinating. Um, it's the idea of an artist pastor, meaning a pastor who is an
Mhm.
artist and who pastors artists. In our kind of current general North American model, we have certain types of pastors, right? And we recognize that the church needs different kinds of leading and giftings in our pastors. We have teaching pastors, and we think of them like they're very scholarly. That is their gift, is to study and then to teach. And we have, children's pastors and worship pastors and outreach
Mhm.
pastors and all these different kinds of pastors. And again, it's the unity of the body, right? We need all of those gifts and strengths to grow us. Um, and one of the things that you just hinted at, Dale, about the spiritual health of artists,
Mhm.
is I wonder who is pastoring artists?
Mhm.
That's
We
a
Yeah.
need
very
it
good
so much,
question.
if especially if we are the ones writing the word put in
Mhm.
people's
Mhm.
as they worship
Mhm.
God. That's crazy when you
Yes.
think about
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Now
But
we use
when
we use the Christian hermeneutic when it comes to scripture. So for singing, that should be the same. For worship
yeah,
music, it
Yeah.
should be to writing songs.
yeah,
Yeah, agreed.
yeah. And when you think about just in the Bible, how much of the Bible is actually song lyrics?
Mhm.
Not just the book of
Yes.
Songs, which is the obvious
And
example,
yeah,
but the book of Lamentations. Um,
yeah.
Yes.
oh, I should know. There's so many. There's so Habakkuk is actually a lot of that is songs of poetry. There's so much of the
Moses had a
Bible that is
song.
actually yes, the Song of Miriam, the Song of Moses, and actually you referenced Genesis, the beginning, like the creation of the
Hmm.
world. Some scholars interpret, if you look at the form of Genesis 1, that it's a song.
Mm.
Yeah.
So if God chose to open his whole word with a song, how amazing is that to think about, right? So
Mm.
Yeah.
um, if we are saying that artists do have a treasured role in the church, then
Mm.
why aren't we pastoring them better? Why aren't we caring for
Yeah.
them and investing in them and discipling them better? Um,
Mm.
Mm.
that's something I really feel called to explore some more.
Wow.
Um, so that's one thing. And
Yeah, I love that.
then, yeah, not just the pastoring of the artist, but having an artist pastor. If you think about the current role of worship pastors in general, it is um, to organize, the music, or sometimes we have worship arts pastors too. That's awesome. How do we use music, and not just music, but art and drama and visual art, all of that beauty that God has created, and make that part of our church life. To have someone gifted and called and resourced to do that. But not a lot of those positions actually involve creating new creative works as the job description. Most of the job descriptions out there are take other people's creative works and do them here, or adapt creative works that are already out there and do them here.
Right.
But can't you think of so many worship arts pastors out there, or worship directors out there, who do write their own songs, but it's outside of their job description. So, things that we don't invest financially in, generally they fall by the wayside. They're not invested in. So in that way, we're kind of saying we don't value it, right? We pay pastors to spend hours writing sermons. A lot of the kind of bigger pastors out there will write books and whatever, and their churches will give them time to do that. So, in general, we don't afford the same thing to the writing of songs. How many hours does it take to write a song? Tons.
Yes, as to say, yeah.
Can take days. Yeah.
It can take days, months, right?
Yes.
And it should. It should. But we generally don't see them that way. We value a song as, oh, that costs $1. A song costs $1. How many hours did it take to make that? How many hours of study did it take to make sure that those words are theologically good and sound? And then, that doesn't even count the production cost. Or the special skills. How many hours of my life did I spend paying a piano teacher so that I could have this skill to play the piano that not everybody has?
Right.
In all of these ways, we are very subtly not valuing artists and the gifts that they bring.
Yeah. Ouch.
Very
That's
true.
one idea. Yeah. And I think in general for churches, once there's more relationships between churches and artists, I think, then they'll know, if you're actually pastoring the artists in your churches, you will understand the unique challenges that they face. You will understand what it's like for them.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many times, if I'm in contact with another church and I'm doing a booking at another church, and I'm saying, I'm an artist, I want to come and serve you. How can we do that? How can we talk about that? And you can tell immediately whether their leadership knows and values you as an artist, right? Are they willing to give me the things that I'm saying? Oh yeah, if we want to partner together, these are the things that I need. I'm not being outrageous or anything. It's very reasonable, right?
Yeah.
But
no, you're right.
But
you're right, because my wife and I traveled as well. I know exactly what you mean. You go to a church where they actually understand, and they're like, oh, you're not charging enough, or you go to another place and they're like, oh, thanks for coming, I don't have any money for you. So there is an understanding from the staff of what you need to do your ministry. Absolutely.
Yes, exactly. Or times where I'll go somewhere, or I'll be in conversation with a place, and I feel like we're not on the same team. Like they don't see me as being on the same team. They see themselves as a church. These are their goals, and I'm an artist, and my goal is to come in and sell CDs to them. That's not my goal.
Yeah, no.
Right? But that's a very common thing. Oh yeah, they're just here to get attention and sell some merch, and so we don't need that. But again, it's well, how do you see artists as part of the ecosystem of the church? How do you see us as serving you and partnering alongside you? And yes, in order to do that, I need certain things from you, but it's so that I can give you something that you don't usually have, right? For example, I had a conversation with a place that I didn't end up booking with them, and they basically were like, fine, you can come, but don't sell CDs. We'll just tell people they can stream your music, and that's enough, because don't you make music? Don't you make money from that? That's a good way of supporting you. And so that already tells me they don't understand what it means to be an artist, what it costs to be an artist. They don't understand, that streaming makes nothing. Nothing. Right?
But they also don't understand the gas to get there, the setup and the tear down, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're doing me a favor by letting me come and perform
Yeah,
for
yeah,
them,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
right?
thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that whole thing of like, just as leadership, as leaders in the church, do
Hmm.
you see the value in what an artist can come and bring to your church? That they can come and bring the word of God to you in a new and a fresh way, and that's
Mm-hmm.
valuable and special and life giving to your church, and it's not an
That's right.
inconvenience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Well, I realize
That's
we've been
right.
taking an hour and 15 minutes, and we still have so much to talk about. It's like this is great, but we need to be sensitive to the fact people are watching at home, and they're probably like, "Okay, it's been an hour and 15 minutes." So,
No, they're not bored. Believe me,
no,
Dale,
well,
if
I'm
you
not
could see the
bored.
chat right now, they're
That's
not
awesome.
bored. We're
That's
already
great.
getting answers to what are ways that we can support. I see. Welcome, Leslie.
Mhm.
I saw you. Where did it go? Um, where did it go? She said organize concerts. Right? So organize
Yes.
concerts.
So
That's
organize
coupled
these
with our
events.
other friend
Absolutely.
that said about the
Yeah.
festivals.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dale, what did you
yeah,
say?
No, but you're right.
Mhm.
You're absolutely right. I think that if we got involved in promoting our artists and giving them opportunities to do what they do, that would be an amazing thing. Like concerts, events, doing ministry of conferences, whatever it takes. Events, outdoor events. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
It
Like a
sounds
very
like there.
practical thing would be,
Yeah.
sorry, yeah, a very practical thing for
Uh,
a church would be to waive their booking fee for an artist who wants to
Mm,
come and
right.
do a concert, right?
Hmm.
Something,
I
it's
agree.
not it's not rocket science. Yeah,
No. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's almost
So
like there just needs to be
I'm going to
a
challenge all
paradigm
the
shift.
worship leaders there. If you're in a church and you're a worship leader, and this is something you didn't really consider before, let's prayerfully consider what we're talking about, because I think you could be part of the system to
So
start changing things. There you go.
the solution.
Yeah, part of the solution. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I love it. Now, I know, Rochelle, you wanted to go back to another thing, and I was just going, what was it that she wanted to go back to again?
oh
Because it
yeah,
got into the
I'll
church.
try to make it I'll try to make it really short. I'll try to make it really short. It had to do with when you said, I was like, oh, technically sharing your song with other churches can cost absolutely nothing. It's a voice memo and
Hmm.
a PDF chord chart, and you send it to them. Um,
Right, right.
of course, there's a lot of reasons we don't do this, but I think a lot of times we get so distracted in the, oh, it has to be perfect. I do this all the time. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to release this song or share it with anybody until I've spent 2 years agonizing over it, and then I raise the money to produce the darn thing, and then I release it, and by then it's like ah. Um, so yes, you do have to be smart about copyright, and obviously send it to somebody that you trust who isn't going to take advantage of you. Um, but yeah, sometimes I think we become too precious with our art. We have to again remember that artists are servants. That's what we're here for. We're not here to perform. We're not here to get attention. We're not here to build our audience. That's what artists out in the world do. As Christian artists, we are here to serve. And anything that I do to build my audience or build my influence is so that I can serve. It's a very different way of looking at it, right? Um, and so when we think about these little barriers, these little tiny barriers of like, I write something and then I don't want to share it with somebody because I'm afraid that they might steal it from me or whatever. Well, just pray about that. Like, is that maybe the Spirit of God is warning you, don't send it to that person, they'll steal it from you. But I doubt very much that that's the general problem, right? I
Mm.
think there would be so much more blessing if we could share our art with each other and be
Hmm.
blessed by it. Um, the other thing is like, and I will confess this myself as a worship director at my own church, that a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I should totally be using more songs at church from other artists, other Canadian
Mm.
artists that I know. By the way, we do use quite a number of my songs that I've written, and they've become really beloved by my church congregation, and they know them just as well as other songs, and I think that's
Beautiful.
really special and wonderful. And yeah, and I have been thinking it's on my to-do list. Like just listen to more of the other Canadian artists and get them into the rotation. think about that, like I'm already somebody who is an artist and I want to do this. I value it. And I still haven't yet done it. I have to confess that that's not, that's not good. But I will also go into like why. There are all these tiny little reasons why these things don't happen, right?
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we use the top 5 and the stuff that's out there is because it's so accessible and because it is very hard in a church to sing a song, a congregational song, and to introduce a congregational song that nobody has ever heard before and that nobody has like any sort of connection to that artist, right? When I introduce a new song and at least they know, oh, it's like a Hill song or a Beth song or whatever, it's like there's a familiarity to it. There's something that they can relate to. So even if they don't know this song, they at least know, oh, we sang that other Beth song and it really blessed me. And so I'll trust Rachelle. This song could be good, There's this sense of like, and that's in general why for new artists it's hard. It's hard to be new. It's hard when people don't already recognize you or have a connection to you. They don't trust you yet. And trust, that has to do a lot with all the things we've talked about, all the reasons why organizations and artists and churches and everything doesn't all come together. A lot of it has to do with we don't know each other. We don't trust each other. I'm not going to send you a voice memo of that awesome song I just wrote if I don't really know you and trust you. And if some other artist sends me something and I have no idea who they are, it's the same. I haven't built that trust with them yet. So when I listen to that song, I'm really like afraid that, oh, maybe their theology isn't the same as mine. Maybe whatever, right? We're always so afraid of doing something wrong, of that we don't try new things. And the other thing is that trying something new takes more energy. For me, if I was like, okay, I have to go in and find some new song and start to put it into the rotation, it just takes more time and effort than picking a Hillsong song or whatever Elevation song that my church already knows and that my worship team already knows how to play. And so there's a lot of tiny little factors that add up to make these things challenging. So again, I'm not saying these are good excuses. I'm just saying a lot of the things that we talk about when it comes to Canadian Christian music, they seem so simple, like just start playing somebody's song. It's not difficult. But once we can recognize that these are just the small things that add up, then we can start to take care of them. You can say, oh, that's actually not a good reason. I have to stop using that.
While you were talking that, I kept thinking to myself, good excuses. And you said it, went, oh, okay, good. I am thinking the same thing. But yeah, it's just unfortunately those little increments that build up and you're like, oh yeah.
And to your point, Rachelle, I do remember someone saying to actually to my husband when asked the question, do you play any Canadian music from Canadian artists when you're leading worship? And the answer was, oh, never thought of it. Where can you get them? Where are they? Right? And because the first thing is let's go to Song Select. They must be in Song Select, right?
Exactly.
Not every song's
Where
there,
are they?
right?
Yeah.
So so that's to your point about the accessibility. And again, this is one of those things that is like, okay, what can we do to make things more accessible? What can we do? And this is what's in the back of our heads, is what can we do to help make this a lot easier? So that's why we like having these conversations, right? So because
we've had a great conversation. We really have.
It has, and I know we could actually probably go another hour going with this.
But we won't. Yes.
We're almost like an hour and 20 minutes here. This is crazy. I love it. I just love
it. And we're getting more comments, and every time I try to read them, I can't. We can teach people, we can teach the congregations our songs even by playing them. This is from Patricia Russell. Thank you so much, Patricia, for being with us. Playing them prior to the service and then teach the small group and then teach the congregation. So in other words, do incremental teaching, right?
Exactly.
I think that's awesome.
We had this similar thing. We played the instrumental version during the offering. We did the
Yeah.
introduction of the song while everybody's coming in, and those are really good ideas. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
For
for the
sure.
church, like now the other side of it is like Rochelle, you said you're very fortunate and very blessed that your church really supports you and your art. Um, but there may be other churches that have artists that may be recording
Hmm.
artists, maybe songwriters, maybe instrumentalists, and for whatever reason, they may be even involved with their music teams, but their music is not being played or used or any way, shape, or form.
Hmm.
And for those churches, I don't know if you would agree with me, but I would say this for those churches, I'd say take stock of who you
Hmm.
have in your own congregation. Take stock of your sheep,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
stock of your flock. Maybe that's a better way of saying it. Take stock
Amen.
of your
Stock your
flock,
flock.
you
Well,
know,
don't stock your flock, but keep
because
stock of your flock.
because
Don't
there
stock them,
may
but
be
keep
some
stock.
there may be some talent there that
Hmm.
there may be a seed of talent that if it was just nurtured and
Yeah.
encouraged and watered
Yeah.
and prayed over, it would
Hmm.
grow and it would bless not just yourself, but your congregation and maybe even beyond your congregation, whatever the Lord has planned for it. But
Hmm.
just take stock of your flock, and
Hmm. Yeah.
really
I
encourage
like
that. I
that.
know that's fun, isn't
Uh,
it?
Take stock of your
That's the
flock. I
next
love it.
mug that you'll make.
That's
Yeah, take
right. So
stock of your flock.
here's the mug. Take stock of your flock. Yeah, sure. Hey, I just want to thank you, Rochelle, for joining us this evening. It has been a real blessing to have this conversation with you, and we could go on, and hopefully we'll have you back someday in the future, and we will go on. And we really, really want to thank you for your time this evening. It was a blast having you with us.
It was, and we try not to
Thank you
wait two
so much.
years to get you back.
Yeah, won't wait two more years? No.
Yes.
So for you watching at home, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget, you can find out more about the GMI Hub online by looking at our YouTube channel and looking through all of the many, many videos we have, and an amazing panelists that we have talked to, like Rochelle. And they're different walks of the industry, from musicians, artists, producers, engineers, the whole gambit. And we've even talked to bass players. Can you believe that? Yeah, they just play four strings, but anyway, we talked to them too, and I'm just kidding,
They
poking at
rock,
all the
man.
bass
They
players out there
rock.
because I love bass players. They're the best. So, anyways, also the GMIHub.ca is the website for you to go check out. It's something we're there for you, and if we have a monthly newsletter which comes your way, if you let us know your email address, we will send that to you every month. And if you're a promoter, an events person, or an artist who's got stuff that you want us to talk about or to put into our monthly newsletter, give us permission to do that. We will be more than glad to promote what's going on in your music, because we want to support you guys 100% with the unity, community, mentorship, and talent growth is our mantra. And we want to just make sure that we're on your side. So gmihub.ca, check it out. And there we also have our compilation CD application. And I want to encourage you, if you're an artist and you love to write music and you're writing Christmas music or you want to write a Christmas song, get it in July 31st. Is that correct, Cheryl? July 31st?
July 31st. That's it. That's the
Yeah,
date.
that's the last day. So that's the last day. So get it in.
Absolutely. And next week, we will be back again, and our special guest will be Holly Taylor as we talk about. We'll be, in a sense, continuing the conversation on the business side, but talking about how to gain momentum in the Canadian industry and the Canadian market. So, Rochelle, this was a great introduction to next week.
Yeah.
Wow, what a
So,
half introduction. Wow.
yeah, there you go. Again, thank you so much, Rochelle, for being here. And thank you, all of you, for watching and for interacting with us. We love your comments. We love your heart, and we love to hear from you. Like, feel free anytime, drop us a line. We have a contact page on our website, gmihub.ca, that you can go drop us a line, send us your ideas, because we do want to support you. We do want to support the industry. We want to help build the unity back. And again, help Canada in particular, help Canada rise to the occasion of what they were called to do. Yes, go to our YouTube. If you like what you see, subscribe, ring the bell so you know when we're coming back, and you can be a part of
Yep.
it and send your comments too. Okay,
Great.
this episode will stay on YouTube, so you can watch it over and over again. You can share it and let all your friends and family, even your enemies, know about it, and they will be absolutely blessed. So then I want you all to have a great night, a great week, and we will see you back next week. Bye bye for
Mhm.
now.
Okay, God bless you. Bye for now.
GMI Hub is accepting new songs for their 2022 Christmas compilation. To find out how to submit your song, go to www.gmihub.ca today. GMI Hub Family Christmas Volume 3. Ho, 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 ho.